streaming. I'm planning on staying here for a longer time today, so I'm not gonna have the camera. Probably not gonna talk much as well. But I wanna continue to build the vlog. I think I'm gonna start by doing the Italian stuff. I copied some stuff from the landing page into the blog already, and I have a decent idea of what I wanna do, but I still have some things that I'm not clear on how I'm gonna do it. And I also found this awesome video here by this guy. Very good video. So I'm gonna follow a lot of the stuff he talks about here. And I realized that it's probably better to use get static props because of this video and other videos as well to render the block, because it's gonna be more efficient, I think. So, and I have to research on how to do that because I don't remember really well. But I'm thinking about having two main components. One is for the main categories, which is gonna be categories that have a bunch of subcategories within them. And then I'm gonna have subcategories, which are categories that are at the bottom of the funnel, let's say. So it works kind of like a tree structure, and then the ones that are at the bottom are only gonna render the page of the main category. And the main categories are gonna be on different pages. And I don't think there is another way to do this. Because I need to define which ones, because there's two main styles of pages that I think I'm gonna have. One is the page that is the main page, let's say, which is the category, and then I have another style of page that is gonna be the pages for the subcategories. And the only thing that is gonna change is the articles and the categories that are displayed on each one. So because I think it's better to use get static props, that's the reason why I think I need these two different pages. One is gonna have the main categories and the other subcategories. And I was thinking about this stuff here that I was doing yesterday. I talked about doing layers, but then I realized that it doesn't make sense because I need to determine which ones are gonna be branching off into other categories. But I think this way that I'm doing here now, it probably makes sense, because then I can select which ones are gonna be on the main categories, and then I can also create other categories depending on how I feel like, because it's gonna be really easy. Just put other names here, and then I put whatever topics I want. So the challenge is gonna be figuring out these lugs and how to render each blog post depending on the name that I have here. I think using get static props, and also creating these two different sites, these two different pages. One for the main. Yeah, I'm gonna have one page which is gonna be the main section of the website, which I don't think is gonna have. I'm not gonna put any categories on that, and then I'm gonna have other page which is the categories page, and then I have to think about how I'm gonna change the logic for each one. So I'm gonna take it step by step and do this main page first, just so I can clean my mind from this stuff. Oh yeah, but here I'm probably gonna put the links for the main categories. That's why I need two different sections, I think. Because then, yeah, I also have to think about, no, the navbar is gonna be a separate thing. Yeah, because this is what I was thinking, because here I'm gonna import the main categories here as well. And I have to export here. Also copy the Google stuff. Yeah, so I'm gonna have this here on the page. And then here I'm gonna pass as props the categories. It's gonna be equal to categories. You just put cat here just so it doesn't get confusing. And then here, I think I'm gonna do it like this. Oh, yeah, I need to put this stuff here. And then the type is an I. But obviously, instead of doing this, which was what I was gonna do, I'm gonna change, remove this thing here. And then I'm gonna get these categories from the page, from this file here. So import there and then get it from the file. And that's the reason why I need two components, I think, because in the main page where I don't have any articles, I'm gonna use the main categories, and they are gonna be on top of the tree structure. It's gonna be the mapping of the categories is gonna be a tree structure, I think. I don't think I can do, maybe I can do a graph structure as well, where then it doesn't go only from top down, let's say, from the main categories into subcategories, where I can mix together later on, but I think that's more complicated to do. So I think I'm gonna just do the easy thing, which is the three categories now. And here I would put the ones that I have on main here, which is gonna be these four. And then once I create, yeah, but that's the thing, because I have to think about this. The challenge is how to create the components so that I can build only one page. And I guess that's easy, because on the main categories I can have the subcategories. That's the thing. So I pass the main ones here, and then on this one I render the nav, the footer. I did a little draw there. Just gotta draw this thing here. That's the layout I'm thinking about for the articles page. The main page is gonna be very similar to the page that I did with the landing page, where I'm gonna put the navbar, the categories, main categories. Then I'm gonna put some stuff about myself and social media, the YouTube videos thing that I did with the landing page. This stuff here, I'm gonna put there. I'm just gonna copy from the methods. And then in the future, maybe if I do something with blockchain, I can also put on the main page, and then the main page, which is the one that has the main categories, would go to this page. So I'm thinking about creating the component of subcategories with using this, where I wrap this stuff with the navbar and the footer, and then the only thing that changes through get static props are the categories and article. And this stuff I don't know what I'm gonna do yet, because I'm thinking about maybe displaying other articles here or other stuff. So, but the reason why I don't want to make this a part of the structure of the components is because I have to make it as a part of the structure, but I'm gonna also try to make it so that it changes with the props, because obviously each article I'm gonna want to put different things here depending on what is the article. So that's another challenging thing that I have to think about. Yeah, the biggest challenge is figuring out what stuff I can put that is never gonna change, and what stuff to put that I'm gonna change depending on the data they receive. And then figuring out the nuances of the static prop and the slug thing. Yeah, so from the main categories is gonna go, I'm gonna render subcategories here, I think. So go from this one, and this is gonna receive the props from here. Maybe I should put just as props here. And the other thing that I don't know for sure is if I should this structure with an array, because I'm gonna be receiving an array. But that depends on the way that I import this, and get it there. Yeah, then here I'm gonna map probably through them. I think I'm actually gonna put the name that I have there, which is main. Yeah, but this is just details, so it doesn't matter that much. I'm gonna figure out, obviously. It'll be main.map, blah blah blah, and then render the stuff that I wanna render. And then here is gonna be wrapped by the navbar. It's not that hard actually, now that I think about it. The hardest part is like I said, figuring out which stuff is not gonna change and which stuff is gonna change, and thinking about how I'm gonna scale this. The more articles I put there. But actually building this stuff is kind of easy. And also the hard part is also the MDX, which I think I've watched this video 2 times already, and I think it's gonna be helpful. And also Fart, the repository as well. It's a very good video. So I'm probably gonna use this a lot to understand how the markdown works, MDX. This is the challenging part. Yeah, but I'll be I'll be right back, and when I come back, I'm gonna do the Italian stuff and find the folder. I'll do this thing here, and then after I do this, I'm gonna start working on the blog. So be right back.
Fa.
Fa.
does,
Fisso.
Fisso.
set, unchanging,
3.
3.
3,
Desiderare.
Desiderare.
desire,
Aria.
Aria.
air,
Bene.
Bene.
well,
Anche.
Anche.
also,
Giocare.
Giocare.
play,
Piccolo.
Piccolo.
small,
Fine.
Fine.
end,
Mettere.
Mettere.
put,
Casa.
Casa.
home,
Leggere.
Leggere.
read,
Mano.
Mano.
hand,
Portare.
Portare.
carry,
Grande.
Grande.
large,
Compitare.
Compitare.
spell, words,
Aggiungere.
Aggiungere.
add,
Anche.
Anche.
even, also,
Terra.
Terra.
land,
Qui.
Qui.
here,
Devo.
Devo.
I must,
Grande.
Grande.
big,
Alto.
Alto.
high, tall,
Tale.
Tale.
such,
Seguire.
Seguire.
follow,
Atto.
Atto.
enact,
Perché.
Perché.
why,
Chiedere.
Chiedere.
ask,
Maschi.
Maschi.
men,
Cambiamento.
Cambiamento.
a change,
È andato.
È andato.
he, she went,
Luce.
Luce.
light,
Tipo.
Tipo.
kind, of thing,
Spento.
Spento.
turned off,
Bisogno.
Bisogno.
need,
Casa.
Casa.
house,
Immagine.
Immagine.
image,
Provare.
Provare.
try,
Noi.
Noi.
us,
Di nuovo.
Di nuovo.
again,
Animale.
Animale.
animal,
Punto.
Punto.
point,
Madre.
Madre.
mother,
Mondo.
Mondo.
world,
Vicino.
Vicino.
near,
Costruire.
Costruire.
build,
Se stesso.
Se stesso.
himself,
Terra.
Terra.
earth,
Padre.
Padre.
father,
Stay for 1 hour and then take a break. Should go to lunch.
The mystery of life isn't a problem to solve, but a reality to experience.
I'm just gonna go doing these things and then I'll improve with time. I mean, that's the thing. I guess I should just import like this. Yeah, now. think I put the wrong one. Yeah, so here I'm gonna put the navbar. Then I'm gonna copy this stuff from the other one. So I'm probably gonna get the video here as well. I'm gonna have to import video as well to export from the file. Or maybe it's already exporting. Yeah, here. So it's gonna be navbar, categories, then the rest of the stuff, and then footer. I don't remember which thing is exactly. I think up until here is the thing that I will, the stuff that I want to copy to the other one, but I don't remember really well. Oh, I put the rest of the stuff on this about component, I think. I don't understand why it's screaming everywhere. It's probably because I copied the wrong way. Oh, because this is a part of this thing here. So it's up to here that I'm gonna copy. Yeah, I think everything is on the about component. I think this is useless, to be honest. Stuff that I got from the other project, from the other guy. don't think it matters that much. Not sure if I'm gonna leave this pair follow as well, but I think that I'm probably gonna leave it there. Because it is good to have something that people can make it easy for people to share the page. It's probably complaining about type. Yeah, that's the annoying thing that I don't like about TypeScript, is that a lot of these libraries don't have types, and I don't know how to deal with this kind of stuff. Because if you're gonna look at the source code of every library you're gonna use and then create types for each specific one, it's just a waste of time, in my opinion. It's better to just use normal JavaScript. But I guess it's not gonna stop it from running, it's just gonna give the warning, but it's still annoying as well. I think this is a string, but I'm not sure. I also don't think I need a video on this one. Oh, I have to install this stuff as well. And there's also some stuff that I have to put on the app, I think. There was some annoying stuff I should do. I don't remember really well. Yeah, this thing here. I don't get it why on this one it works like this, but on the other one I have to specify there is one directory above. Guess it's just because of the structure, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Yeah, so now I have to remove, I think, this true here because I don't have. Another challenge is gonna be to figure out how to deal with the team UI stuff. It's gonna be annoying. And now it's just this annoying thing about type. How the fuck do I put a type to this? Can I close this? I think I'm gonna look at the other stuff, then I think about this, but I think I'm gonna try to put a just add the file there inside of the project, the Node.js thing. But the issue is that even if I do that, like, it doesn't change anything, because when I deploy, the file is not gonna have it. So I don't know if I'm gonna do this or not, to add the type. It's really annoying to deal with this stuff. Because I haven't found videos that talk about this, about TypeScript. Like, I don't see... Obviously, it might pay off in big projects, but I don't see how spending a bunch of time figuring this out, which seems to be something trivial, it matters or it pays off. I don't understand it. Also, I don't see the point as well in putting the types here, because people say that it makes a difference when you're developing, but I don't know. I never felt like I don't know the type of something. But it probably makes a difference in very big projects when you're working with a team, for example. Then I think it matters, because then someone else might do some code and you don't know what they did, and that's the point. But from personal experience so far, I think it's pointless to put these types and do this extra work for pretty much nothing. So what else I have to do? Let me think. Yeah, this page head is just for meta stuff, for the SEO, which I'm gonna work on after I finish everything else. Then I have the navbar here. I think I'm gonna close this for now. Hopefully this is working as well. I have to change the image as well. And the favy icons. So maybe I'll do this right now. I think it's easier to put this stuff by looking at the thing directory, the directory. also gonna do the thing where I go to the website and then create the other favicons as well. Yeah, I think that the rest was just generated. So let me go into the So what else? Okay, I have the navbar here. I have to change this stuff. And now I think it's fine. So I have the navbar, this thing. Check when that work on the main categories. And this obviously I'm gonna change. The annoying thing is gonna be figuring out the classes to style all this stuff. Blah blah blah. I think this is fine. Then this thing here, then the footer. Oh, I have to change this thing here. Let's see if I... And let me see if I can run this. Because now, after this stuff, then I have to work on the main categories and subcategories components. And then figure out all the slug thing. And I think I'm gonna put the posts on here. And the posts are gonna be written with the MDX syntax. And everything that else I'm gonna do with TypeScript or JavaScript. So I think I uninstalled this module because I was getting an error. Let me do that again. Oh yeah, it's because of the Next.js configuration. I think I uninstalled because of that. And then I changed this and it worked. And I forgot to reinstall the module. Okay, so there's the problem with fave icons. What trace for requested modules? Oh, yeah. So this stuff, I remember I had some problems, and I think it's because you have to download some other stuff. Yeah, because I need the free brands, and the package only comes with the solid. Babel.com. Same mistake there. This is on the page head, I think. It's actually a different mistake. It's probably because of this thing here. I think the mistake is on this thing here, or the in parts, but I'm not sure what should do. Should fix it. Let me see how he did on this one. I think that's how I have to do it. Just use default on all of them. Which one is the problem? Oh, maybe here? This is another thing that I got before, but I have no idea why this show up here. I assume it's because of the same problem that I have with the React shares thing of type definition. But I don't understand why it shows up on this TS config JSON. And there's no parse JSON here. It's probably something that it does under the hood that I don't understand. Maybe I have to include more types of files. Now let's try this one.
Is there mercy for those who strive so hard?
I also realized that it's probably wrong to put main here. Should make this equal to main and then change or add the definition here. Not sure how to do that. I'm gonna try to solve one thing at a time, if I can. The problem I'm having here is with the imports, I think. That's the issue. And here is receiving no, I think. Oh, but this stuff should be on the browser, I think. So I don't think this no is from this thing here. So why was this working on the other one? Doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I don't get it. Where is the thing? If I restart the stuff. Also need to get rid of this thing here. Or maybe I'll leave it here for now. So where's there a link with? I guess I'll have to go one by one. Oh, here. Finally. Well, I think I understand why when you import from the file you have to use like this, but when you're importing from a folder then you destructure, so that it understands that it's not the file that you're importing but the component. But when you're importing from the file directly, then you don't need to do structure because it's already, you're already accessing the file with the import. So here, because I'm importing from the folders, I destructure because each file has the component of the inside of the file is the same as the name. That's why it's confusing. But if the file had a different name, then you would use the name of the file here, and then you would get the, I think, actually, not really sure, but I think that's what's going on. Yeah, now I have to figure out how the team UI works. Like what kind of stuff can I put on here? Like how I'm gonna, what parts of the CSS I'm gonna pass to the team UI. I'm thinking about just the colors, let's say. I use with team UI, and then for the structure I use CSS for each section, I think. Because one of the problems I had, and it's always annoying with other projects, is that if I put everything on the same file and then I separate by sections, but then it gets kind of annoying to find each one. So I think it's a better strategy is to separate each segment of the page into its own CSS file. That way it's a lot easier to find this stuff. So let me think. I think I'm gonna wait. Probably gonna watch videos while I eat something, and there's 5 minutes for the break. I'm just gonna think for a little bit before I do anything else. Yeah, so the next stuff that I have to do is to work on the main category. I'm trying to think what is a better thing to do. Work on the team UI, search for team UI videos, and then study the team UI and how it works, how I'm supposed to do it. And do that first, and then style this main page first. I'm more inclined to do that because I think visually it's a lot better to understand what's going on. If I have everything styled on this page, I can get a sense of how this is gonna look like. I'm also gonna have to change this. I'm gonna have to find another thing to put, another component to wrap the links with, because this li component, this list is not very good. No, maybe yeah, I have to see. Maybe I don't wrap with anything, but then the problem is that I don't think I can. Maybe I can put a class name inside of the Next.js image component. And here, this thing is also not sure if it's really necessary. Yeah, but I have to think about something to change this element with, so it looks better, and then the thing stuff, and then after that, which is gonna be the hard part, I think, thinking about how I'm gonna do the main categories components. I think I'm gonna have a nav bar here, and then I'm gonna have, actually I should put a fragment on this. I'm gonna have the nav bar here, and then I'm gonna have a footer. Then I'm gonna have shoot divs here, I think. Or one div that has shoot divs, and that's gonna be the article. And then the other segments that I'm not sure. Maybe I create another component actually for that, but then it's gonna get more complicated. I think that for most things, the simplest way you can do it is the best. So I want to try to do it in the simplest way as possible. And then you only add complexity if it's necessary. So the challenge about this other component that I'm gonna put inside, not inside, on the right side of the article, is that I'm not really sure exactly what I'm gonna do with that. Oh, and then here I have to put this subcategory thing as well. Subcategories, components. Yeah, but let me think more about this. Because the thing is, if I create one page for each main category, let's say I have 4 pages, one for programming, the other for health, fitness, economics and blogs, and blockchain. The problem with that is that, what if I want to create more pages that are considered as main categories on the subcategories of those main categories? So let's say in programming, I'm thinking about doing one topic for each language, so JavaScript, CSS, things like that. And then on which one of those I have different topics. So it doesn't scale well if I do one page for each one. That's the problem. I have to think about a way to do only a single page, and then with that single page I can change the structure based on the data. So instead of creating the 4 different pages, I have to figure out how to do one component that changes depending on which section it is. That's why I'm thinking about, I think that the logic that makes sense is to separate the structure of these categories into another file and then connect that with the components. To me, that's what makes more sense. And then the thing that I don't know, that I'm not sure, is what is going to be the data structure, how I should structure the file that handles the relationship between categories, which I think is either has to be a graph or a tree, but I'm not sure if it's worth to make a class as well. To make it a class and then actually make a class of a node or of a tree or a graph, or if I just put the object there and then do the thing that I'm doing now, which is making each one equal to a list. And that's the vision that I have. Is the categories is a graph, and then the pages are rendered based on the flow of the graph, let's say. But I think I need to have two different components because the main page is different than the other ones. But maybe not. Maybe yeah, the question is, can I make this main category change just with the information that I pass as props here? So I pass props. Yeah, I have to think about ahead of time what I'm gonna use here. That's the key point, I think, is what structure the categories file needs to have. So that is the best connection between all the categories. Because maybe main has to be another dictionary or another object, and then these other topics go inside of the main thing. So I'm thinking about it. What if in the future, because obviously I don't know how I'm gonna scale, how many articles I'm gonna write, articles about what kind of stuff. I have an idea, but if there's one category inside of this that I wanna later on change to be in another level of the structure, that's my concern. That is gonna screw up everything. So let's say instead of having, or maybe I'm thinking more about more layers deep when you have topics like, for example, brain anatomy or something like that. I don't know what I don't know, so I know a lot about this stuff, but obviously I'm gonna encounter a lot of different things, and when I encounter these things, then it's gonna make me want to change the way that categories are structured. So I might have one category that is brain, so inside of health and fitness I put something like neuroscience, then weightlifting, something like that, and then inside of these categories there are other categories, but then I might decide that actually neuroscience is not a good way to classify these articles that I have here. It's better to create two different types of categories and then split the articles between the two. But then if in the beginning I created this structure in a way that is not easy to do that, then it's gonna be a massive problem to change everything. This is very difficult to think about. Oh, and this is gonna have the get static props, I think. And from this thing, I think I use the logic of the props to do the get static props, and then the get static props is the things that... Well, actually, I think... I'm not really sure now. And to render each article is probably... I use get static props, and then I use these props to determine which one is going to be rendered depending on the slug of the page. I think I have to create several different pages, or at least one more that has the special syntax of the square brackets in the name to identify which page it is. And so this is not going to be a component, it's going to be a page, I think. And this one is the one that changes with the get static props, I think. And so the question is, do I do another component here? And then I pass the props from this one into this one? Or do I pass directly, I put the logic directly here for the props? close this. Close this. I'm just gonna leave open the stuff that I'm working now, so that's not. There isn't a lot of stuff open. And I have to figure out how to specify this type here as well. Which is really annoying. Yeah, whatever. I think I have to specify on the component page the props here instead of the other level. It should be here and then. Is like this. So fucking annoying. Or maybe this also makes more sense to do like this. But I don't get why I'm getting these mistakes here. Something to do with TypeScript. This stuff is because I don't have the information here. But this is from TypeScript, annoying things. And this is so annoying. And I have to spend a bunch of time researching this. I don't know what I do first though. If I spend a bunch of time researching this stuff or I think about how I'm gonna structure this thing here. The problem is that they both go hand in hand because I need to do stuff with this in order to test which one is how I'm gonna structure this file here to deal with the categories. So let me think. Actually, I think I'm tripping here. Because this component shouldn't have the navbar. Yeah, I think I'm confusing things here. This shouldn't have the navbar in the footer. I think that's the confusion that I made, is because this is gonna be a component and then I'm gonna create another page that is gonna have the other page is gonna use. Yeah, that's why I need two different components, I think. Because the other page I'm gonna put the navbar in the footer and then the articles. Then does it make sense to put? I think it does actually, and then instead of having a thing here, I just do it like this. Yeah, but I still run in the same problem of the levels of the different categories, which is hard to think about. As if I want to swap them from each place. Let me think about this. Because the problem is if I make two different pages, then I think I have to make the logic for the categories on the main page to work in the same way that the other categories are gonna work. So I have to use the same component. And then I make two different pages. Yeah, but that's the thing. Because when you click on the main, if I'm doing the first page like this, when you click on the main category, then you should change the structure of the page. That's why I need two different components. So maybe these ones, the main ones, are fixed. And I can change by adding, obviously. So it's not a big deal, not that big of a deal. But these main ones are done with this logic that they are gonna render the link to go to other pages, to the other page layout that I'm gonna build. And then from the page layout, then I can just change only the article and do with the get static props. Hmm. So how would this look like if I did it like this? here I would have links. Yeah, instead of having the article here, I would just have a link. And I have to fix this annoying thing. Because the problem if I don't put this as a TypeScript file, it's gonna complain on this file here about how the props doesn't have a type. Yeah, I don't know how to work with TypeScript. I don't have experience with dealing with this stuff, and it's really annoying. Every time I encounter this, I decide to do everything with JAX because I just think it's a waste of time. But maybe this time I'll push through it and figure out how to do it. Biggest issue is that it takes away from the main purpose of the thing, which is the build, the stuff. Instead of spending a bunch of time researching how to put these annoying types on each thing. I'm not sure if I should create another file like this with this extension here and then put a bunch of types there and see if that works. Should change this file to JSX and then change this thing here, or should put the types on this file. Like there's so many different directions to go. And I remember searching for videos about this, but I couldn't find specific videos that talk about these types on Next.js. So it's harder to find or to figure out how to do it. Yeah, but here I would have the links. The links would have to be rendered by mapping through the props though. That are the categories. So it would be props.map or props and props.map. And then here I would render the. Now I don't remember if I should do return here or I think I just put the element that I want. And I think I have to return as well. And then I would probably need to wrap this around some other components so that I can put the key on the component. Because when you map, you have to assign a key to each component. And the href would be, I think it's href. We'll go on to the other one and see. Yeah, href. Maybe it's better as well. Let me think. I think I should figure out how to do it with get static props though. Because then it's just better, just put the name of the page here. Instead of doing this thing. I'm gonna watch the video from the other guy. I'm gonna go eat something. Then I'll continue to think about it. Probably gonna watch videos on get static props and the types as well. So I'll be right back.
And if that's the only thing you get from this video, mission accomplished. But the other two reasons are that you also learn by sharing your knowledge with other developers. So once you have a blog, you can write articles for it and share what you're learning with the world, which only benefits you as well. And lastly, it helps your career. To have a presence out on the internet, to be sharing your knowledge and showing the world and your future employers what you're learning will only help you when you apply to the next job. So to get started in this video, we've got this website right here that's just saying the word articles right now. And we're going to start with the homepage. And on this homepage, we want to show a list of the blog posts. So we're on the homepage, so we'll go to Pages Index, and here's where we want to show a list of all the articles. And the articles that we're going to be listing come from Markdown files that we're just going to commit into this same repository. So inside of the Posts folder, I've got two that I just copied over from my website, and we'll go take a look at one. Now notice that they're not MD, they're MDX, and that's Markdown, which allows you to embed things like React components. So we'll be looking today at this one here, YouTube. It basically is a little component that allows me to pass in the ID of a video, and it will just render out a YouTube video in this article. We're not going to write the actual YouTube component today, but this is what it looks like. It's just a div that has an iframe inside that embeds the ID in the URL, and it will show up nice. So this is sort of the advantage of MDX. You can create a bunch of these little reusable components and embed them in your article. You can also use built-in ones like the image component that comes from Next.js, and we'll also take a look at that. So in this Markdown file, we also have something at the top called front matter. This is basically metadata about our article, things like title, what tags does it have, when was it written, what's the excerpt that should show up, and then below that we have the actual Markdown itself. So let's close this for a second, we'll go back to the homepage, and we want to work on basically getting a list of all of these articles to show their title, the tags, and excerpt. And this is going to take a few steps because we need to basically read in all of these files, we need to extract the data, so we're going to be doing some mapping over files, and hopefully it'll be interesting. So what we're going to do right here is we're going to export an async function, get static props. So we're doing this as a static function, which is server-side generation. Basically at build time when you deploy, it will go find all of the files and build out the data statically, because the blog posts are only ever going to change when we commit and push code. So we can improve performance by sort of doing the work ahead of time. So what we want to do here is basically get some posts. So we'll say get all posts, which is a function that doesn't yet exist, but we're going to be grabbing it from SRC API. So why is it at SRC API? Well, in TypeScript, you can sort of provide some like paths so that you can just refer to them by at SRC instead of having to know like .. what level am I at? How many dots do I put there? So I set these up and that will point to SRC API. And we are going to be working on a function called get all posts. So export const get all posts is going to be equal to an arrow function. And in here, we need to do the work of getting all of the posts. But the first thing we're going to do is actually try to load all of the slugs. And the slug is just sort of this part of the file name, reduce SWR. And this is what will end up being the URL in our browser. So we're going to do that as a separate function here. Export const get slugs. And this will be an arrow function that will take in nothing and it will return an array of strings. So just like that, I think that's how you define an array of strings. Yes. Cool. So to actually read all of these files and get these slugs, we're going to be using something called glob, which is basically you pass it a pattern. So in this case, like star.mdx, it will go and it will find all of the files that match those patterns and give them to you. So we're going to say const paths is equal to sync, which is this function I imported from glob. And here's where we need to tell it basically where to look. And because in a couple places we're going to use sort of the path to these posts, we're going to come up here and we're going to say posts path is equal to a couple parts of a path joined together. The first one will be wherever this process is running from, the current working directory, and then /posts. So with that here, we can embed that into this string here, so posts path, and then we're going to look for star.mdx. And I just want the console.log and see what these look like. But remember, this code's not being called yet, so we'll say get slugs, just like this. And we'll make TypeScript happy for now. We'll just return an empty array to make it all nice and non-red. And we'll come back to the website, and we got an error. Okay, so your get static props function did not return an object. All right, let's go fix that. So this function get static props, it needs to return an object that has the props that will be passed into this function here. So I think it should work now. Let's go see what it output. And it's output this data. So why don't I paste this above? So this is what we've got working with now, but really what we want is just this reduce. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm basically going to split on the slash, and then we'll get the last part of it. And then I'm going to split that part on the period, and then just get the actual file name, not the extension. So what we can do is we're going to return the paths, and we're going to map them one at a time where we have the path. And what I want to do is take the path and get, let's call it the parts. So we'll say path.split on a slash. And then I want to get the last part. So we'll call that the file name. And we'll say parts at parts.length -1, just like that. And now with the file name, I want to basically break this into two parts. So we'll say we have the slug and the extension that we don't need, and that's why I put it with an underscore. So we'll say file name.split on the period, and then we can return the slug. So I don't need this sort of bogus return statement down here. And if we wanted to, we could console.log this out and see what we're working with so far. So we'll refresh the page, go to the terminal, and now we've got reduce and SWR. Now these will end up being the different slugs that show up in the URL when we're looking at each article. But sort of the next step we need to do, and I'll get rid of the console.log in case it's, I don't know, a little bit confusing. Why don't we put them inside of a variable called posts? With each slug, we basically want to go and load the information from the file itself and parse it all out to get the metadata, to get the actual content of the article. And that's what we're going to be working on next. So we're going to take the slugs and we're going to map them again. So as we map them, we'll get each slug. And we want to create a function called getPostFromSlug. GetPostFromSlug. Given a slug, it will go grab the post and all of its corresponding metadata. So we'll create this right here, export const getPostFromSlug. So we take in a slug, which is a string, and what we want to return is a post, just like this. And if TypeScript's new to you, don't worry, it's just basically giving a little bit more information to the compiler so it can basically tell me when I'm screwing up. If I mess up something like right now, it's saying, hey, you used post, you didn't define it. It will help me not mess up as I'm trying to code all this for the video. So we're going to define an interface of post. And what fields will this interface of post have? It's going to have content, which is a string. So that is sort of everything from here below. And then this here, we're going to create as basically metadata. So we're going to say meta is post meta, like that. Now that doesn't exist, so we need to say interface post meta. And each sort of metadata for a post will have an excerpt, which will be a string. We'll have a slug, which is also a string. We'll have a title of a string. We'll tags, finally something different. We'll have an array of strings. And then we'll have a date, which will just return as a string as well. So strings all around. Save that. What's the error now? Basically, a function whose declared type is neither void. So basically it's saying, hey, you told me you're going to return a post. You did not return a post. So you got to go sort your function out. So what we want to first do is, why don't we get sort of where we think this post lives? So we'll create a variable called post path. And what we'll do is we'll take path and we'll join together some parts. So we're going to reuse this posts path. And then we're going to join that together with basically the slug.mdx, which is what the file should be named. So why don't we console.log that out? Let's make sure it's working just like that. Reload, come here. Here's the path where we should be finding the files. So you may be thinking, Lee, you just sort of redid everything you did above. Yes, that's true, but the cool thing about this function is that you can just pass it a slug and it will go grab you all of the information. And that will be useful later on when a person visits like /swr or posts /swr, we can just easily go and load all the information for that post. So with the path figured out, we want to read in the contents. We'll call them the source. So source like this, and we're going to use fs. Now path and fs, they are both coming from Node. Remember, this is server-side code, so we can use Node functions like path and fs. And on fs, we're going to be using something called read file sync, which does it synchronously. And we'll pass in a post path, and we should have the source here. So we console log that out. We should have, well, we have a buffer, but it represents the contents of the file. There's a way to convert a buffer to a string. I don't know how without looking up, and I don't want to look it up right now. So we're just going to hope it works and use that source to basically extract two things. The first will be the content, and content is basically everything below the front matter, so here down. And then it's also going to give us the data, which will basically be the front matter data. So there's a tool called Gray Matter that does this sort of parsing for us. It gives us a function called matter, and we're going to call matter with the source and come back from that. Why don't we just take a look at the content and data? We should have, perfect. So there's our markdown. And then just down here, we have the data. This is all of the front matter data. So our title, our tags, our date, and the excerpt. So now that we basically have everything, what I want to do is return an object where for the most part, we're just going to be returning exactly what we have here. But I'm going to put this into an object called meta. And in meta, a couple things I want, which is basically this data here. So we want the excerpt. So the excerpt will come from data, just like that. Next, we have the slug. So slug is actually here, so we don't have to do anything special for it. Why don't we put it first because it requires the least special. And we're still missing the title, so we'll say data.title. But let's say for whatever reason you didn't define a title here, we'll just use the slug so that we can sort of guarantee, we'll guarantee an excerpt as well as an empty string, just to keep our type happy. Oops, I didn't want the string slug, I want the variable slug. Okay, so after the title, we want the tags. So we'll say tags is equal to data.tags, and we want to sort them so that they're in alphabetical order. But let's say they forgot to provide us any tags. So what we'll do is we'll use nullish coalescing from TypeScript. So basically like, if this isn't here, use this empty array instead and then sort them. And then the last thing we need to return is the date. And we'll say here again, just in case they forget to add the date, what we want to use is data.date or new date. And I want to convert that to a string, just like that. Cool. So we just did a lot of coding to get all of the post data from a given slug. It's returning all of this data here that we've typed out correctly. And remember here, I'm actually importing this post meta type. So I want to add an export here so that it can import that and it seems happy. Cool, cool. So we're still working on get all posts. We've done a lot of work to get all the slugs. Now we're mapping each slug to the actual post data. But let's say we want to sort them and sort of put the newest post at the top and sort of go down in sort of, what is that, ascending order, I guess you could say, or is that descending? Descending, newest at the top. Anyways, we're going to sort them. So we're going to call a sort function, and sort is a function you pass in that receives sort of one post and another post, and we have to do some work to compare post A to post B to tell it which one is newer or older, or which way to sort them. So what we're going to say is if A, its meta and its date is greater than B meta date, then we return positive 1. So if A.meta.date is less than B.meta.date, we return -1. And if they're the same, we return 0. So I'm just going to save that. We've sorted them out, but this puts it in ascending order. So oldest at the top, then newest at the bottom. We want to reverse that. So we'll just add reverse here on the end. And we can now return posts. just like that. So with this function done, I should be able to come back here and let's take a look at the posts. See what we got that we're working with. Okay, so we've got basically the same data here, but we should have an array of them. It's sort of hard to tell. Yeah, there we go. So there's one article, there's another here. Each article has metadata that we're working with. Perfect. So now that we have the posts, we want to pass that information to our component so that we can render them out and show them on the screen. So what I want to do first though is we don't want too many posts on the home page. So why don't we use slice to basically just get the first 9 or the latest 9 posts. So we're going to slice that. And I actually don't need all of the content on the home page. Let's just get the metadata of each post. So we're going to map it and we're going to take the post and we're going to return the post's metadata. So I'm calling this posts, but it's sort of a lie. You can see here it's actually an array of post metadata. But what would you call this? Post metas? I don't know. We're just going to go with posts. And now that we have that, we want to pass these posts as props to our component. So what we can do is we can just put posts here. And that allows us to come up here and receive the posts. So we'll just make our type happy and we'll say post is an array of post meta. Cool. And then what we could do is we could basically create a UL and we could map each of the posts into an LI and we could show the post.title here. It's going to freak out. It wants a key probably. So we'll say the title should be unique. The slug should also be unique. So why don't we use the slug? And let's come here, refresh, and it's now working. It's showing us the titles of our posts. So we're making some progress. This doesn't look great yet. Why don't we create a little component that will show these more nicely and it will allow us to link into each of the posts. So what I'm actually going to do is I've sort of defined where I want to create this articles component. So instead of doing this, what we're going to just do is we're going to say articles and we're going to pass the posts in here. Its type isn't happy yet, so we're going to go into components, articles here. I can uncomment that because post meta does exist now. So we can say we want to receive posts and these will be an array of post meta. And now I can do the same thing I was sort of working on above. We can say posts.map each post to an LI. And the key on this will be post.slug. And now we got to figure out basically what to put inside each one. So we're going to start with basically just the title. And I'm going to put this inside of a div for now. And we'll say post.title. Let's see how we're looking. Okay, so each post here in the title. Now I've actually done like very minimal styling inside of this articles module where I basically styled the list itself, each LI in it, and I created one for the title. So we can come back and we can just give this a class name of styles.title. Basically made it slightly bigger. And we want to make these links. So we're going to put in a link component around the title. And link requires an href. So where are we going to link to? We're going to link to /posts and then the slug of the post. So posts and then the post.slug is where it's going to link to. So if I come back, now this is a link that takes us to /post/swr /post/reduce. And we haven't built out this page yet, but that's where we'll get to in a second. But for now, I just want to basically add 2 more parts to this. So the first part is just to show the excerpt. So we're going to use a P, and in here we're going to show the post.excerpt. And did I have a class for excerpt? I did not. So it's looking beautiful. And then below the excerpt, I want to put another P where I'm going to show the tags. And I did have a class for tags. It's just called tags. So we'll give this a class name of styles.tags. And in here, because there's many tags, we need to map them. So we're going to say post.tags.map each tag. And each tag is going to be a link. And the link will have a key of just whatever the tag is. And its text will be whatever the tag is as well. And we need to tell it where to take the user when they click. So the href will be /tags and then the tag. So save that, come back, and we now have hooks which I haven't built yet, JavaScript, React, and this will show you only the articles that have that tag. So we've built out the homepage. Now we need to click in and build the actual details page for each post. So the code for each post lives inside of pages, posts, slug. Slug being the dynamic part that would be like SWR, reduce, or whatever you've named your blog post. And this may seem overwhelming, like how many imports do you need in this file? This is insanity. And yeah, it is a little bit insane, but we're going to walk through and talk about what each one does, because there's a lot that goes on in this file. We're basically taking this markdown file and we're parsing it and applying a bunch of plugins to it to get code highlighting, to get auto-linking headings. And yeah, so I think it will be interesting. And we're going to start with sort of that same function we used on the homepage, get static props, because we're building these pages statically at build time. So we're going to say export const get static props. And this one we're applying a type of get static props, and it will be an async function that receives the params. Now params in this case gives us all of the information from here. So the SWR gives us the actual slug. So what we're going to do is basically put that slug into a variable. So we'll say const slug is equal to params, just like this. And now it's going to say slug can be anything. We don't want it to be anything. We want it to basically know that it's a string. So we're going to say as slug is a string, just to give it a type hint so that it knows sort of what it's working with. Now the next thing we can do, because we have the slug, is go call this same function get post from slug, and that will give us the two things, the content of our post and then all of its metadata. So we're going to call that function passing in a slug. And you can see that this is still sort of angry, and it's because we need to return an object that has props that get passed down to our component. So you can see it, the red went away, but we have quite a bit of work to do. So the next thing we need to do is basically take this content, which is just sort of a string of markdown, and we need to basically convert it into something that will show H1s and paragraphs and lists and anything we've put inside of our actual markdown. But what we're using for markdown is this thing called MDX, remember, which allows us to embed different React components inside of our markdown. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a variable called MDX source. And we're going to get that by calling await serialize. And into serialize, we need to pass the content. So we're going to pass that in there. Cool. And why don't we see what we get back? MDX source. So I'm going to go to the browser. Oops. Okay, what did I do? Okay. So anytime you use get static props where it can be dynamic, you also need to provide get static paths, which basically gives it a list of, hey, here are all the possible options you have to work with. So let's go build that quickly. It's actually pretty easy to do based on the get slugs function that we did previously. So we're just going to say export const get static paths, and the type for that is get static paths, and that will be async. Cool. So what we need to do is basically build up an array where each array has params, and then in our case we want a slug like SWR. So we want sort of to end up building this, something that looks like this. So keep that in mind for now, and what we're going to do is we're going to put that into a variable called
The reason why I was getting all the errors here is that I forgot that if you're gonna put these components here, it has to be SX instead of TS, which is TypeScript. That should be this TSX extension, so that it understands that it is a React file to mix HTML with React. So that's why I was getting the errors there. And this maps one, I'm not really sure. Oh, it's probably because I have to put .main here. Yeah, there we go. Because of the way that I'm specifying here. While I was watching this video, I think I understood how to do it, but then I forgot again. I had an idea of how to solve the thing that I was thinking about. But I think I'm gonna leave it like this, where and this should be main because I'm getting main from here. How the fuck do I put this time here? Or I guess I just put it like this. I'll figure this out later, but what I'm thinking about doing is going in his tutorial and then incorporating the stuff he's doing there, and then later on modifying to what I'm trying to do. But here what I'm gonna try to do is to loop through the main categories, and then with these main categories I think I'm gonna put on another page create another page, and then from the other page I'll do the get static props thing. And then depending on the name, yeah, I think that's what I was thinking. Depending on the name of the file, I can filter the post file to get only the articles that I want. I'm gonna watch this video from the beginning, and I'm gonna leave this stuff to do for the last parts. Also need to import links in this file.
These are all of the paths you're going to be visiting for all of the different static pages. So we'll call get slugs, which will return us an array of strings. We're going to map each of those slugs, and we're going to basically build out.
Let me get the function. I think I'm gonna close this thing as well. Probably not gonna use anything more from this project. And thank God that this one had a types file. And here also I have to put pages as well, I think. Because my post is inside of pages. I'm gonna copy his two posts there to test on my stuff.
This params slug like that. Cool. So I can get rid of this for now, and we can return an object that has the paths and also fallback false. What does fallback false means? It basically means don't try to go generate this page on the fly dynamically if they visit a page that doesn't exist, because in this case, all of the pages that can exist will already exist, so we don't need to do anything dynamically. So with this in place, we can come back, refresh, and it still doesn't show anything yet, but if we go here, we basically see all of this MDX source. So it's a whole bunch of JavaScript. Don't worry, you don't need to know what to do with it really. We're going to be working with a component called MDX remote that basically receives this source and knows what to do with it. So what we're going to do here is we want to basically pass this MDX source as a prop to our component. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, you're going to get a post, and the post is going to have two things. It's going to have the source, which would be MDX source, and it's also going to have all of the metadata, this data right here. So we're going to save that, and we need to make these props available to here. So here we are going to say it's going to receive a post, and what will a post be? A post is basically two things. It's the MDX source and the meta. Now instead of writing this all out, what I'm going to do is just create a little type here. So interface, we'll call it MDX post, and it's going to have the source from MDX, and that type is sort of crazy. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually just copy that like that, and we will also have the meta, and meta is the post meta that we've imported from our API file. So with this in place, we'll say this is an MDX post. And now what are we going to do with this post? Well, the first thing we can do is we could just show the title in this h1. So post.meta.title, and we'll put the same thing inside of our actual title tag in the head, and let's see if it's showing up. Cool. How does SWR work? It's displaying, it's also showing up in the title up here, so far things are working. And below the h1 is where we want to use this MDX remote component. So MDX remote, it's going to be a self-closing one, and it wants to receive basically the source. But the way you pass it in, you basically say spread in the post.source like that. So that's all you have to do. Come back, and now we've got all of our markdown showing up on the page. But there's a couple things missing. The first thing is it's not showing that YouTube video that should have been displayed here. The second thing is that it's not highlighting any of our source code. So we can go fix those two things up right now. And why don't we take care of YouTube first? So what we can do is basically pass in to this component, hey, here are all of the React components you can expect to receive and you should be prepared to render out. So what we can do is we can say, okay, components, it's an object of the components. So we're going to pass in this YouTube one. We're also going to pass in image from Next.js, just like this. So if I come and refresh, awesome, we've got the YouTube video showing up, but we still haven't, we don't have our code being highlighted correctly. So to do this, we are going to basically pass in some options when we're serializing our markdown content. And they get passed in with MDX options. And one of the options you can pass in is rehype plugins. And this will be an array of plugins. So rehype is what it uses sort of underneath, behind the scenes to do all of the parsing of your markdown. And rehype comes with probably 100 plugins you can use. Let me just rehype plugins.
One thing that I don't understand the way that he's doing this is if all the posts are gonna have YouTube, or if you just pass the component and then it knows what to do if it doesn't have any YouTube there. It's just like you're passing, because that changes everything based on the whole logic of the thing. I also think that I'm probably gonna do what he's doing there because I think I need to put the file here with the slug and inside of the square brackets and then posts in another file. So I think I'm gonna do this. Move this one to the main directory. Because of the way that get static props work. So he's using the file inside of pages as the template of the articles that are gonna be rendered. And I think I'm gonna do exactly what he's doing there, but the only difference is gonna be on the structure of the components that he's rendering on the page. So I'm probably gonna have that file and then this other one as well. And in this one, I render the other based on the main categories, I think. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have two components. Should have just one. I think I'm gonna have just one actually. And then this is going to have this style for the categories, and then I'll find a way to render each category depending on what page I'm at, I think. That's probably the best way to do it. And then the logic has to be on the get static props thing, I think. Yeah, this is the stuff that I was thinking. Because then I can receive something as a... I think I can receive a parameter on the slug page inside of this. Inside of the get static props, and then based on that parameter I can filter the folder with the files and then make an algorithm that filters based on the which category here. And I'm also not sure if it's better to just put the main separate and... But I think it doesn't matter that much because I can always add different categories here if I want to. Yeah, but then it doesn't make sense as well because the best way that I think to do is just to have everything on the same level probably. Because then if I want to display different types of things inside of each category, I just create new ones. And then I handle the logic for deciding which thing to display based on the slug of the page, I think. Which elements in the category to display. Yeah, so in this component, actually, I'm going to use get static props as well, I think. And then based on the get static props, then I decide which thing I'm going to display. That's the way to do it, I think. So I'm going to go back to You can do like this, yeah. So that way I can filter the files based on this whatever file I put here on the main, on the get static props here. From this component. So I pass as a props, and then I make it the logic so that, and this is the thing that I'm not sure I have to see. So the question is how the props work when you're using get static props and you're also passing props from another component into this one. Or maybe, yeah, I'm not sure how it works really well, so I'm gonna read the documentation and study this. But I think I'm gonna start by integrating what he's doing here into what I'm doing, and then only after I integrate everything is done there, then I'll think about this stuff. Let me see if I'm gonna put as JSX so that the mistakes go away. Then I'll focus on this later. Now this magically fixed itself. Well, it also added this thing here, I think. Yeah, I don't understand, but whatever.
Search for it. You'll get a huge list of all of these things. Render math inline, minify the HTML, syntax highlighting, code blocks with Prism, parse the tree, compile to React. There's a ton of things you can do in here, sanitize.
The other thing that I thought it was interesting is that he
Started in this video,
he uses something that allows you to put the paths in a different way. I think I'm gonna do that as well now, instead of having to use the dots stuff everywhere.
We've got this website right here that's just saying the word articles right now. And we're going to start with the homepage. And on this homepage, we want to show a list of the blog posts. So we're on the homepage, so we'll go to Pages, Index, and here's where we want to show a list of all the articles. And the articles that we're going to be listing come from Markdown files that we're just going to commit into the same repository. So inside of the posts folder, I've got two that I just copied over from my website, and we'll go take a look at one. Now notice that they're not MD, they're MDX, and that's Markdown, which allows you to embed things like React components. So we'll be looking today at this one here, YouTube. It basically is a little component that allows me to pass in the ID of a video, and it will just render out a YouTube video in this article. We're not going to write the actual YouTube component today, but this is what it looks like. It's just a div that has an iframe inside that embeds the ID in the URL, and it will show up nice. So this is sort of the advantage of MDX. You can create a bunch of these little reusable components and embed them in your article. You can also use built-in ones like the image component that comes from Next.js, and we'll also take a look at that. So in this Markdown file, we also have something at the top called front matter. This is basically metadata about our article. Things like title, what tags does it have, when was it written, what's the excerpt that should show up, and then below that we have the actual Markdown itself. So let's close this for a second. We'll go back to the homepage, and we want to work on basically getting a list of all of these articles to show their title, the tags, and excerpt. And this is going to take a few steps because we need to basically read in all of these files. We need to extract the data. So we're going to be doing some mapping over files, and hopefully it'll be interesting. So what we're going to do right here is we're going to export an async function, get static props. So we're doing this as a static function, which is server-side generation. Basically, at build time when you deploy, it will go find all of the files and build out the data statically, because the blog posts are only ever going to change when we commit and push code. So we can improve performance by sort of doing the work ahead of time. So what we want to do here is basically get some posts. So we'll say get all posts, which is a function that doesn't yet exist, but we're going to be grabbing it from SRC API. So why is it at SRC API? Well, in TypeScript, you can sort of provide some like...
Yeah, that's the thing that I want to see. I'm thinking about other stuff as well, which is whether or not it's necessary to use get static props for my situation on this file for passing to main categories. And then if I can make a function here that gets the logic in here, or the files in here. Yeah, because that's the difference, I think. One of the differences from the way he's doing and the way I'm trying to do. He's basing all the logic based on the folders, on the files inside of this folder. But I want to add this extra logic which determines different categories for which depending on which page it is at. So maybe I use these functions and then I use another function that I create to see which ones should display. First, I'm gonna add the paths thing there, one thing at a time. It's easier to go to the project.
Paths so that you can just refer to them by @src instead of having to know like .. What level am I at? How many dots do I put there? So I
Let's see if it works.
set these up, and that will point to SRC API. And we are going to be working on a function called get.
Yeah, I don't understand why it's not working. Components. Yeah, whatever.
All posts. So export const get all posts is going to be equal to an arrow function. And in here, we need to do the work of getting all of the posts. But the first thing we're going to do is actually try to load all of the slugs. And the slug is just sort of this part of the file name. Reduce SWR, and this is what will end up being the URL in our browser. So we're going to do that as a separate function here. Export const get slugs, and this will be an arrow function that will take in nothing, and it will return an array of strings. So just like that, I think that's how you define an array of strings. Yes, cool. So to actually read all of these files and get these slugs, we're going to be using something called glob, which is basically you pass it a pattern. So in this case, like star.mdx, it will go and it will find all of the files that match those patterns and give them to you. So we're going to say const paths is equal to sync, which is this function I imported from glob. And here's where we need to tell it basically where to look. And because in a couple places we're going to use sort of the path to these posts, we're going to come up here, I'm going to say posts path is equal to a couple parts of a path joined together. The first one will be wherever this process is running from, the current working directory, and then slash posts. So with that here, we can embed that into this string here, so posts path, and then we're going to look for star.mdx. And I just want the console.log and see what these look like. But remember, this code's not being called yet, so we'll say get slugs, just like this. And we'll make TypeScript happy for now. We'll just return an empty array to make it all nice and non-red. And we'll come back to the website.
I think I understand here. So this function returns the content and metadata based on the library, gray matter. And then this one returns all the posts. And the other returns the file names inside of the folder there, this folder. So what I have to do is to call this getSlugs function and then filter this based on the categories here. So I don't think I need to put categories here. Probably gonna put on the file that I'm gonna use getStaticProps.
And we got an error. Okay, so
Yeah, the only question I have now is how I'm gonna do it with the other file, because the other one is gonna depend on the props that are passed through this one. So depending on which category they select on the main page out of the 4 that I'm gonna have there, then the filtering should be different. But I guess I can put, it's not that hard actually. Just put the logic there for filtering based on the name and based on this file here. So whatever name they click is gonna have the name here on this file. Then I create a function that filters all the files inside of this posts file based on this stuff here. It would be harder if I decide to put other folders inside of here to separate more, which is something that I thought about, but then I think it just gets too complicated. It's not worth it. It's better to just put all the files here, and then it becomes a lot easier to filter the files based on whatever categories I put here. And then inside of here, I'm going to put the names of the files inside of each category, depending on where I want them to show up.
Static props function did not return an object. All right, let's go fix that. So this function gets static props. It needs to return an object that has the props that will be passed into this function here. So I think it should work now. Let's go see what it output. And it's output this data. So why don't I paste this above? So this is what we've got working with now, but really what we want is just this reduce. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm basically going to split on the slash, and then we'll get the last part of it. And I'm going to split.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is on this file here, I'm going to put get static props, and then I'm going to get the main from that. I'm not sure which one is better though. If it's just better to import it like this, or to get it with get static props. I think get static props is only better if you are actually gonna display the content. So maybe I should read the documentation again.
GetStaticProps. If you export a function called getStaticProps, static site generation, from a page, next.js will pre-render this page at build time using the props returned by getStaticProps. Export async function getStaticProps, context, return props, / will be passed to the page component as props. Note that irrespective of rendering type, any props will be passed to the page component and can be viewed on the client side in the initial HTML. This is to allow the page to be hydrated correctly. Make sure that you don't pass any sensitive information that shouldn't be available on the client in props. When should I use getStaticProps? You should use getStaticProps if the data required to render the page is available at build time ahead of a user's request. The data comes from a headless CMS. The page must be pre-rendered, for SEO, and be very fast. GetStaticProps generates HTML and JSON files, both of which can be cached by a CDN for performance. The data can be publicly cached, not user-specific. This condition can be bypassed in certain specific situation by using a middleware to rewrite the path. When does getStaticProps run? getStaticProps always runs on the server and never on the client. You can validate code written inside getStaticProps is removed from the client-side bundle with this tool. getStaticProps always runs during next build. getStaticProps.
Yeah, so based on this stuff here, I'm not really sure. I think it's only necessary to use it on the other page. And then on this one, I import it like this. I think that's better. But maybe it is more efficient to use getStaticProps. The other thing that I was thinking about is that maybe this is the stuff that I was thinking as I was watching and eating, is that if I use these functions here that he's using, I wonder if it's gonna be a problem because I'm getting all the posts all the time. That's the thing. Because it seems like inefficient, because if I'm on a page that has a subcategory, then what's the point of getting all the posts that are not on the page? Is gonna make the site slower, I think. So that would be the benefit of creating subfolders inside of the posts folder for each main category. But then it gets more complicated because of the function that I'm gonna have to use to read all the files. And then this is the thing that I don't know if, but yeah, here is passing through here. As well as the map. And then inside of this, inside of the getSlugs function, I pass an argument as well. And then I join there. Let's think about it. Let me worry about this stuff later, because first I need to make it everything work. Then I wonder about whether or not I'm gonna put subfolders on there or just leave everything on the same file.
Headless. CMS.
The problem with leaving everything on the same file or on the other folders as well is that it might change the whole logic with this as well. Because then depending on which page it is, then it's gonna filter the files available based on that. So I'm not gonna be able to put different files on 2 different categories. Yeah, I think it's just easier and probably doesn't affect too much unless I have thousands of posts. Even then, it's probably not that big of a deal, I think. So the trade-off is not worth it, I think. I think is because the trade-off is to gain a little bit of speed, and then, but the cost is that it becomes a lot harder to organize based on this logic of this file here. So I think it's not worth it. And here I think I'm gonna do like this. So now the issue is I have to figure out this whole type thing now, because I think to follow the tutorial is better if I fix this thing first and then I go build the other page. Yeah, this is the page that actually has the get static props. So let me. Because I'm only gonna use one component, I think. Yeah, use one component and then decide which things are gonna be displayed on this component based on this file. That's the best way, I think. And then on this log page, I just put the structure of the other components together and load this component. And there's no issues anymore. Oh, it's on this file. So now I have to change this stuff as well, I think. Yeah. But where's the mistake about the type of this thing here? I also need to console log this to see if what I'm getting from that file is what I'm thinking that I'm getting.
When does getStaticProps run? getStaticProps always runs on the server and never on the client. You can validate code written inside getStaticProps is removed from the client-side bundle with this tool. When combined with incremental static regeneration, getStaticProps will run in the background while the stale page is being revalidated, and the fresh page served to the browser. getStaticProps does not have access to the incoming request, such as query parameters or HTTP headers, as it generates static HTML. If you need access to the request for your page, consider using middleware in addition to getStaticProps. Using getStaticProps to fetch data from a CMS. The following example shows how you can fetch a list of blog posts from a CMS. // posts will be populated at build time by getStaticProps, function blog, posts, return, posts.map, post, equals, post.title, // this function gets called at build time on server side. // it won't be called on client side, so you can even do // direct database queries. Export async function getStaticProps, // call an external API endpoint to get posts. // you can use any data fetching library const res equals await fetch, https // posts, const posts equals await res.json, // by returning props, posts. The blog component // will receive posts as a prop at build time return props, posts, export default blog. The getStaticProps API reference covers all parameters and props that can be used with getStaticProps. Write server-side code directly. As getStaticProps runs only on the server side, it will never run on the client side. It won't even be included in the JS bundle for the browser, so you can write direct database queries without them being sent to browsers. This means that instead of fetching an API route from getStaticProps, that itself fetches data from an external source, you can write the server-side code directly in getStaticProps. Take the following example. An API route is used to fetch some data from a CMS. That API route is then called directly from getStaticProps. This produces an additional call, reducing performance. Instead, the logic for fetching the data from the CMS can be shared by using a lib/directory. Then it can be shared with getStaticProps. /lib/loadposts.js / the following function is shared // with getStaticProps and API routes // from a lib/directory export async function load posts // call an external API endpoint to get posts const res equals await fetch https //posts /const data equals await rest.json return data // pages /blog.js import load posts from /lib/load posts / this function runs only on the server side export async function. GetStaticProps / instead of fetching your /API route, you can call the same / function directly in getStaticProps const posts equals await load posts // props returned will be passed to the page component return props posts. Alternatively, if you are not using API routes to fetch data, then the fetch API can be used directly in getStaticProps to fetch data. To verify what next.js eliminates from the client-side bundle, you can use the next code elimination tool. Statically generates both HTML and JSON. When a page with getStaticProps is pre-rendered
And
at
there
build
we
time,
go.
in addition to the page
Nice.
HTML file,
Nice.
next.js generates a JSON file holding the result of running getStaticProps. This JSON file will be used in client-side routing through next/link or next/router. When you navigate to a page that's pre-rendered using getStaticProps, next.js fetches this JSON file, pre-computed at build time, and uses it as the props for the page component. This means that client-side page transitions will not call getStaticProps as only the exported JSON is used. When using incremental static generation, getStaticProps will be executed in the background to generate the JSON needed for client-side navigation. You may see this in the form of multiple requests being made for the same page. However, this is intended and has no impact on end-user performance. Where can I use getStaticProps? GetStaticProps can only be exported from a page.
Yeah, so what I'm gonna do here is, instead of putting main here, I'm just gonna put whatever variable it is. Then I filter this based on the arrays from this page, and I get these arrays from getStaticProps, I think. Or I just import there as well. Let me think more about this. I don't think I even need to. I just need to use getStaticProps on the page that is gonna render the articles. Because here I can just import as well. No, but yeah. I need to filter based on the props. Yeah, I think this can be any name here. Or maybe not actually. I have to make it as the name. If I remember correctly. Oh, yeah, still works. But it's undefined. Yeah, so the name. If I wanted to put whatever name, then I need to do some other stuff there. Yeah. I would need to do like this. And then it works. Oh, I can use object.keys here. That's what I was thinking about. I think the problem here is that I'm passing the wrong thing. That's the thing. Here I can't pass the main thing. I have to pass the here instead of, because the name is confusing, I put the wrong name here. Should be categories. That's the stuff. So I should be passing, instead of passing categories, I should be passing categories.main. And then it's gonna be an array. And then I don't need to destructure this, and I can just filter So yeah, now it makes sense. So the filtering logic comes on the page that is gonna use these categories here, which is gonna be the slug. This one is always going to be main that I'm gonna pass, and main is gonna contain the main topics for the blog. And then on the slug is the thing that is gonna depending on the way that they are navigating through the files. Each file is gonna have a different logic based on the get static props. And then I have to code a function here that determines that. I think that's the best way. So for me, instead of get all posts returning all the posts, I'm gonna filter this, or maybe I just use this function as it is and then I filter later after calling the function. Yeah, I can create another function here and then just filter all posts based on whatever argument is passed. And the argument is going to depend on the slug of the page. That's the thing. So the only thing that I have to think about is what will be the best way, the optimal way to filter this arrays here based on whatever slug I have here on the URL, I think. Because based on the slug, I'm gonna know which category the thing is. And then from that, but the problem is I'm not really sure if that's the best way, because then I have to filter all of the sections I have here, looking for the name of the thing. Yeah, let me focus on building this thing first again. Then I'll think about this. Okay, so here I'm gonna put. Yeah, now it makes sense the how useful it is TypeScript. I just thought about this. Because now I'm thinking about putting a comment here that says the props is an array. Let me try to do it again. The only annoying thing is that it's not the is figuring out the types for libraries and for components. That's the annoying thing about TypeScript. And also understanding these props here, how to do it correctly. Is array or no, it's just like this. Yeah. Yeah, I think now is correct. I wonder if it's gonna let me do this. Yeah, here is a link and stuff. And then obviously I'm gonna put this style here later. Which is another thing that I have to think about, how to use the theme UI thing. Where's this thing coming from? I think I just have to restart maybe. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, but it looks like this is not showing. Oh, because there isn't anything on the, obviously. There isn't anything here. I wonder if I should put another name to this, like health and fitness. It's whatever. And there's still nothing here. Why isn't it showing here? Let's see. What's going on? Don't understand. Because the things are being... So this is working here because it's showing here. So I don't understand why the links are not showing. Yeah, I don't get it. What is going on here? It might be because of the style that I have to, but it doesn't make sense because it should be showing there at least here if it is working. And it's weird because the information was passing here to this point, so I know this is working, and the props is going there, but so it must be because of this. But this is not an empty list, so I don't know why. Let's yeah, it's still the same thing. What is going on? I also think I don't need these components here. I'm gonna keep watching the video and then try to incorporate the other stuff, and then I'll come back to this. I think it might have to do with the style, but I don't understand why that would be the case. There's something weird going on here because I know it's working, it's passing the information, but it's not showing anything here. And yeah, I'm gonna get to the point where I have this log page there. It would be nice to see everything, to get to the point of at least this stuff working, and then go to the. Then after that, I think I'm gonna try to study the theme UI thing and style the page so that is easier to see what's going on there. And then I'll go back and work on finishing the categories thing and rendering the posts.
On the period, and then just get the actual file name, not the extension. So what we can do is we're going to return the paths, and we're going to map them one at a time where we have the path. And what I want to do is take the path and get, let's call it the parts. So we'll say path.split on a slash. And then I want to get the last part. So we'll call that the file name. And we'll say parts at parts.length -1, just like that. And now with the file name, I want to basically break this into two parts. So we'll say we have the slug and the extension that we don't need, and that's why I put it with an underscore. So we'll say file name.split on the period, and then we can return the slug. So I don't need this sort of bogus return statement down here. And if we wanted to, we could console.log this out and see what we're working with so far. So we'll refresh the page, go to the terminal, and now we've got reduce and SWR. Now these will end up being the different slugs that show up in the URL when we're looking at each article. But sort of the next step we need to do, and I'll get rid of the console.log in case it's, I don't know, a little bit confusing. Why don't we put them inside of a variable called posts? With each slug, we basically want to go and load the information from the file itself and parse it all out to get the metadata, to get the actual content of the article. And that's what we're going to be working on next. So we're going to take the slugs and we're going to map them again. So as we map them, we'll get each slug. And we want to create a function called getPostFromSlug. GetPostFromSlug. Given a slug, it will go grab the post and all of its corresponding metadata. So we'll create this right here, export const getPostFromSlug. So we take in a slug, which is a string, and what we want to return is a post, just like this. And if TypeScript's new to you, don't worry, it's just basically giving a little bit more information to the compiler so it can basically tell me when I'm screwing up. If I mess up something, like right now it's saying, hey, use post, you didn't define it, it will help me not mess up as I'm trying to code all this for the video. So we're going to define an interface of post, and what fields will this interface of post have? It's going to have content, which is a string, so that is sort of everything from here below. And then this here we're going to create as basically metadata. So we're going to say meta is post meta, like that. Now that doesn't exist, so we need to say interface post meta, and each sort of metadata for a post will have an excerpt, which will be a string, while the slug, which is also a string, will have a title, a string. We'll tags finally something different, we'll have an array of strings, and then we'll have a date, which will just return as a string as well. So strings all around, save that. What's the error now? Basically, a function whose declared type is neither void. So basically it's saying, hey, you told me you're going to return a post, you did not return a post, so you got to go sort your function out. So what we want to first do is, why don't we get sort of where we think this post lives? So we'll create a variable called post path. And what we'll do is we'll take path and we'll join together some parts. So we're going to reuse this post's path. And then we're going to join that together with basically the slug.mdx, which is what the file should be named. So why don't we console.log that out? Let's make sure it's working. Just like that. Reload, come here. Here's the path where we should be finding the files. So you may be thinking, Lee, you just sort of redid everything you did above. Yes, that's true, but the cool thing about this function is that you can just pass it a slug and it will go grab you all of the information. And that will be useful later on when a person visits like /swr or posts/swr, we can just easily go and load all the information for that post. So with the path figured out, we want to read in the contents. We'll call them the source. So source like this, we're going to use fs. Now path and fs, they are both coming from Node. Remember, this is server-side code, so we can use Node functions like path and fs. And on fs, we're going to be using something called read file sync, which does it synchronously. And we'll pass in a post path, and we should have the source here. So if we console.log that out, we should have, well, we have a buffer, but it represents the contents of the file. There's a way to convert a buffer to a string. I don't know how without looking up, and I don't want to look it up right now. So we're just going to hope it works and use that source to basically extract two things. The first will be the content, and content is basically everything below the front matter, so here down. And then it's also going to give us the data, which will basically be the front matter data. So there's a tool called gray matter that does this sort of parsing for us. It gives us a function called matter, and we're going to call matter with the source and come back from that. Why don't we just take a look at the content and data? We should have, perfect. So there's our markdown. And then just down here, we have the data. This is all of the front matter data. So our title, our tags, our date, and the excerpt. So now that we basically have everything, what I want to do is return an object where for the most part, we're just going to be returning exactly what we have here. But I'm going to put this into an object called meta. And in meta, a couple things I want, which is basically this data here. So we want the excerpt. So the excerpt will come from data, just like that. Next, we have the slug. So slug is actually here, so we don't have to do anything special for it. Why don't we put it first because it requires the least special. And we're still missing the title, so we'll say data.title. But let's say for whatever reason you didn't define a title here, we'll just use the slug. So we can sort of guarantee, we'll guarantee an excerpt as well as an empty string, just to keep our type happy. Oh, I didn't want the string slug, I want the variable slug. Okay, so after the title, we want the tag.
Let me just go and get the file. Well, this article is interesting as well. Yeah, it's pretty similar to what I'm doing there, but I'm not gonna put this metadata because it's gonna be just topics. I think the way he did it, he added another stuff on the component there. So people can go from one post to the other ones. But my style is gonna be different. And this YouTube thing. Yeah, this is the file that I wanted. Inside of the square brackets can be whatever name you want. We're just gonna make it the same as his. I think this is the file that is gonna, it's probably complaining about the type that is gonna receive, or that I'm gonna put this structure. So mine is gonna be different here. So here I'm gonna put the navbar and then the footer and do the layout that I talked about here. It's gonna be navbar, then the categories, then the article. I think the article is done with this MDX remote here that he talked about that you use to parse. And then here I think you pass whatever components you may or may not use on this thing here. If it is not like that, then you can also do probably pass the props here as well, like flag variables, and then just do the nullish coalescent thing, or in this case would be the end, I think, or the ternary operator to decide which ones the post is gonna have or not. Yeah, the only question I have, and I'm not sure if it answers, is that here you're receiving props through this, but I guess because I not only want to receive props, I want to our posts from this, I want to pass other props as well from the other page. Let me think about this. This is the stuff that I'm not sure if I'm thinking about in the right way or not, because in this page my goal was to add the categories here, component. And then I would pass the props here to the categories based on the props that I received from this log here. Yeah, I think that works actually. So yeah, the algorithm has to be here on the categories component that I need to get based on whatever item exists inside of one of these. I need to get the category that they are a part of. But what if they are part of multiple categories? Because ideally you would be the other way around, where I receive the name and then I display the categories instead. That's the ideal way. So maybe I do have to separate into two different components, one for the main one and the other for this thing here. Or I can do, because the way that he's doing is just like with the slash and then name of the article here. So it's like localhost. And then he's doing the logic based on whatever is in here to pass here. But what I can do instead is just do like this. So I do the hierarchy based on this thing here. I think that's the best way. And then so this maps to this thing here. And then through this I can get I can pass the right props to filter the categories that are going to display there based on this name. So I use this name to pass as props here, and then I use the name of articles to display the article that they selected. And then I pass this stuff through this post here, which is getting through here, based on these functions here. Yeah, this log is this thing here that I talked about. This part here. Then this is from the API, and this is from this library to serialize the content. So this is the function that I have to change as well. This path here. Yeah, now I think it's clear on my mind how I'm gonna do this. It's just like this, then I only did this component, and then based on this component I display the links on the categories, and then I do like I said before, where I put this 2 here instead of just putting 1. And then I display the categories based on this, which is gonna be whatever I decide to put here. Because this way it allows me to do something like, let's say in the future I have something, for example, for studying or something like that. Let's say I have focus here. Then later on I decide to do something like another category called study. Then I can put focus here as well. So the article shows up in 2 different categories. But if I'm just searching for the name of the article, the thing that I was thinking about is how I'm going to go from this name to the main category to display all the related articles as well. And if I do based on filter, then it doesn't work because then it's going to display too many articles, because we would pass the condition for for different arrays here. So you would display both articles for Have Fun Fitness and Just Study, and I don't want that. But this way that I'm talking about here, then it allows me to just get just put here whatever category I want to show on any specific page, and to put multiple articles in multiple different categories at the same time. And then all the logic, regardless of which page they are at, it doesn't matter because the logic is done through this log here. Which is based on this function from the API. Yeah, so the thing that I'm going to do differently is pass another argument to these functions. And this argument is going to allow me to... Yeah, this is the question actually. Is at which point I put the argument so that I can select the path based on the main categories here. That's the question. Because yeah, maybe I'm receiving from this thing. This is the thing that I have to clarify, is how these parameters get passed when it reaches this page. And it goes from I think here I have to link to this log here. And then depending on what stuff I get here, it may or may not work out in the way that I'm thinking about. Because I need to receive both letters from this thing here. Both names. I think I'm gonna do this off stream because I'm tired of streaming already. But I'm gonna probably watch some videos and then study the documentation as well to understand more how it works. The key issue here is that I don't understand really well what I'm gonna be receiving on the get static props. But I think the stuff that I talked about there is how probably I'm gonna go about doing this, and I think that way it probably works.
Tags. So we'll say tags is equal to data.tags, and we want to sort them so that they're in alphabetical order. But let's say they forgot to provide us any tags. So what we'll do is we'll use nullish coalescing from TypeScript. So basically, like, if this isn't here, use this empty array instead, and then sort them. And then the last thing we need to return is the date. And we'll say here again, just in case they forget to add the date, what we want to use is data.date or new date. And I want to convert that to a string, just like that. Cool. So we just did a lot of coding to get all of the post data from a given slug. It's returning all of this data here that we've typed out correctly. And remember here, I'm actually importing this post meta type. So I want to add an export here so that it can import that, and it seems happy. Cool. So we're still working on get all posts. We've done a lot of work to get all the slugs, and we're mapping each slug to the actual post data. But let's say we want to sort them and sort of put the oldest, or sort of the newest post at the top, and sort of go down in sort of, what is that, ascending order, I guess you could say, or is that descending? Descending, newest at the top. Anyways, we're going to sort them. So we're going to call a sort function, and sort is a function you pass in that receives sort of one post and another post, and we have to do some work to compare post A to post B to tell it which one is newer or older, or which way to sort them. So what we're going to say is if A, its meta and its date is greater than B meta date, then we return +1. So if a.meta.date is less than b.meta.date, we return -1. And if they're the same, we return 0. So I'm just going to save that. We've sorted them out, but this puts it in ascending order, so oldest at the top, then newest at the bottom. We want to reverse that, so we'll just add reverse here on the end, and we can now return posts, just like that. So with this function done, I should be able to come back here, and let's take a look at the posts, see what we got that we're working with. Okay, so we've got basically the same data here, but we should have an array of them. It's sort of hard to tell. Yeah, there we go. So there's one article, there's another here. Each article has metadata that we're working with. Perfect. So now that we have the posts, we want to pass that information to our component so that we can render them out and show them on the screen. So what I want to do first though is we don't want too many posts on the home page. So why don't we use Slice to basically just hit the
Yeah, what
first
I'm gonna do is copy the articles component from him, and then I'm gonna incorporate that inside of this log, I think.
9 or the latest 9 posts. So we're gonna slice that, and I actually don't need all of the content on the
Inside of this log file. This file here. And the bottom of this categories thing.
page. Let's just get the metadata of each post. So we're gonna map it, and we're gonna take the post, and we're gonna return the post's metadata. So I'm calling this posts, but it's sort of a lie. You can see here it's actually an array of post metadata. But what would you call this? Post metas? I don't know, we're just gonna go with posts. And now that we have that, we want to pass these posts as props to our component. So what we can do is we can just put posts here, and that allows us to come up here and receive the posts. So we'll just make our type happy, and we'll say post is an array of post meta. Cool. And then what we could do is we could basically create a UL, and we could map each of the posts into an li, and we could show the post.title here. It's going to freak out, it wants a key probably, so we'll say the title should be unique. The slug should also be unique, so why don't we use the slug? And let's come here, refresh, and it's now working. It's showing us the titles of our posts. So we're making some progress. This doesn't look great yet. Why don't we create a little component that will show these more nicely and will allow us to link into each of the posts? So what I'm actually going to do is I've sort of defined where I want to create this articles component. So instead of doing this, what we're going to just do is we're going to say articles, and we're going to pass the posts in here. Its type isn't happy yet, so we're going to go into components, articles here. I can uncomment that because post meta does exist now. So we can say we want to receive posts, and these will be an array of post meta. And now I can do the same thing I was sort of working on above. We can say posts.map each post to an li. And the key on this will be post.slug. And now we got to figure out basically what to put inside each one. So we're going to start with basically just the title. And I'm going to put this inside of a div for now. And we'll say post.title. See how we're looking. Okay, so each post here in the title. Now I've actually done like very minimal styling inside of this articles module where I basically styled the list itself, each li in it, and I created one for the title. So we can come back and we can just give this a class name of styles.title. Basically made it slightly bigger. And we want to make this, and its text will be whatever the tag is as well. Again, and build the actual, and we are parsing it and applying a bunch of plug is a string, just to give it a type hint so that it knows sort of what it's working with. Now the next thing we can do, because we have the slug, is go call the same function get post from slug, and that will give us two things: the content of our post and then all of its metadata. So we're going to call that function, passing in a slug, and you can see that this is still sort of angry, and it's because we need to return an object that has props that get passed down to our component. So you can see that the red went away, but we have quite a bit of work to do. So the next thing we need to do is basically take this content, which is just sort of a string of markdown, and we need to basically convert it into something that will show H1s and paragraphs and lists and anything we put inside our actual markdown. But what we're using for markdown is this thing.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna stop here. So what I'm gonna do is the stuff that I just said. So what I need to clarify is, so there are two main components. One is the slug, which is the stuff that shows up here in the URL. And understand that and how that goes into the get static props. And then after that, modify the functions to, or the API functions to work with this stuff here. So in that way I can do the stuff that I was saying here. Just separate based on the main category, pass that to this categories component to filter the articles based on whatever articles I have inside of each component here to display the link to them on the main thing. And yeah, this is going to be the link to this slug page here. And then this is going to contain the structure for every article. And what's going to change from page to page is just the article that is being rendered and what categories are being shown based on these two keywords here. If I can make it happen with the slug thing here, which I'm not sure because I don't really understand very well. How is this received and how to pass? So this is the main things, is this function here and then these parameters and these API functions. And then fixing or making these two things, then I think that's gonna be everything. And then after I finish that, then I focus on the theme UI. But those are the two things only that I see that I have to do to finish this, and the rest should be very easy. So it's not as complicated as I thought. And then obviously writing the articles with MEDX is gonna come with practice to know how to do it. Once I actually start writing articles and posting and putting them here, then yeah, that's another thing. But that should be everything. I also found two different sites as well that I think I'm gonna be using for deciding the thing, which are very good. Is this thing here. It allows you to see to these things here if the contrast of the background and foreground is good or not. So I think when it comes time to do the theme, I'm gonna use this stuff here. Gives AAA if it is good or not. And yeah, So I think I'm gonna rest for a little bit and then work on this off stream. And then probably tomorrow I'll come back and continue to work on this.